everyone, this is Patrice from Empowerment Within. I am here today in episode 6 of Helping the Helper. You can only give what you have. Today we're going to talk a little bit about personal blocks and how to move through those so that we can move on to really who we are meant to be. And so our blocks, we've talked a lot about, in the past few weeks. The first 4 were about what you can do externally, skills that you can work on in order to better yourself, to improve your burnout, to kind of be able to be a little bit more present with your clients and do the things that you love to do to take care of yourself. Now, in the last couple of weeks, we've moved more towards internal awareness. What a lot of people don't understand is that we go into professions a lot of times because of unwritten or unknown stories that we've written about ourselves. And so what I mean by this is that, a lot of helpers have a story of, I want to make sure I take care of people, I want to make sure people are okay, and a lot of their worth really ties around that, making sure that other people are okay. And while this is really noble and wonderful and caring and compassionate, we have to understand that while we can do the best that we can do for other people, we can't change them unless they're ready to change themselves. And that's a really hard thing for people to accept. A lot of us want to say, well, if I keep showing up and I keep doing this and I keep doing that, then they'll get it, then they'll work on it, then they will take better care of themselves. And unfortunately, oftentimes that doesn't happen. It takes us setting boundaries, and it takes us setting expectations of people to make some of those shifts happen. And so when I talk about blocks, we really talk about, what's stopping you from setting healthy boundaries with people? Is it that you don't want to hurt someone's feelings? Is it you don't want to come off rude? What's really getting in your way of setting some of those boundaries that are going to help you be healthier? And then we work with those blocks themselves. Next week we're going to talk about brain spotting, and brain spotting is my primary method that I use with all of my clients, and it actually helps a lot to clear those blocks and understand where they're coming from at a deeper level, because a lot of things like not setting boundaries or not following through with expectations of others come from stories that are really, really old that we may have no conscious awareness of. And so, you utilize what we talked about last week in mindful living and meditation and all of that stuff to start becoming aware of some of these patterns that are coming up for you. So I noticed that, let's say, within family, I can set boundaries really well, but when it comes to work, I can't. Or I can set boundaries well with people I'm not very attached to, but I really have a hard time setting boundaries with people that I really care about. And understanding what's behind those blocks is what's crucial, because when we're able to address those, we generally are able to live our life more aligned with who we want to be. And this helps burnout significantly, because everything that's going on around us that's triggering us, that's making us activated or making us feel very emotional, starts to become less about what's actually happening around us and more about understanding how it's impacting us and what it's kicking up. When we're able to address what something is kicking up, we're able to resolve it, and then it no longer pushes our buttons in the same ways anymore. And that is crucial in this profession, because when you're a helper, a lot of people are going to kick up a lot of your stuff because people become vulnerable with you. They get close with you. They tell you a lot about their history. And when we hear those stories, unconsciously, it can dig into the stories that we've told for a really long time. So some other understandings are there specific people that maybe you put in the extra effort for? Are there specific people that you almost like cringe when you have to see them, or you don't want to see them at all? Are there specific people that you just do the bare minimum and that's very unlike you, right? So, and then what about that person is activating something in you, and then what are you telling yourself behind that activation? Brené Brown talks a lot about this in her books, about vulnerability. And she talks a lot about, the story I'm telling myself is. And so when we can learn what those stories we're telling ourselves are, we can address those and we can clear them so they no longer impact us. And I tell people, obviously you're going to go day by day and some things are going to bother you and other things are not. But it's a good gauge that if it's like above a 3 on a scale of 0 to 10, or a 3 and above on that scale, where 10 is you're super angry or super sad or super anxious, and 0 is your most calm and zen self, that it says more about what you're telling yourself and what your brain is bouncing off of in your history than it is about the actual interaction. And that's not to say that other people aren't disrespectful at times or rude or hurt our feelings. All of those things are natural and a part of life. But it's to say how we absorb that really directly reflects off of how much healing that we've had. And I give an example to a lot of people of, a person in a checkout line, right? And so you're checking out and they seem a little bit irritable and they seem a little bit off, and maybe they make some kind of side comment. And while that wasn't warranted or justified, your reaction to that really depends on how much healing that you've gone through. Because someone who hasn't done a lot of that healing may get quickly activated and irritated, and you don't talk to me that way, or I don't deserve that, or whatever other story that they're telling themselves, or maybe withdrawn and shut down because you feel like you've done something wrong. Someone who's gone through their healing can take in that moment and understand that everything that's going on with that person is not about you, it's about that person themselves. And so, that's really crucial to understand, because when we are able to start taking responsibility for our own struggles and processing through those, the world becomes less about this person did this to me. It becomes less about us versus them, and it becomes more about understanding how much pain a lot of people are in and how they're expressing that. And that takes a while to get to, and it's not a perfection. Healing is a process and growth is a process, and we're not always going to be perfect at it. So I try my hardest to show up that way. And when I can't, or when I'm struggling to one day, I take the time to check in with myself and see what's going on with me instead of pointing the finger at somebody else. And then what I call that is an opportunity for growth. So now I've learned a new way and a new trigger that I need to work on in order to process that out so I can keep showing up how I want to show up. So just in a recap, today, we talked a little bit about understanding what your blocks are. So what's stopping you from setting boundaries or engaging in self-care or being a more mindful person, what's getting in your way, and then understanding the story you're telling yourself around those blocks and identifying and being aware of your triggers. And then next week, we're going to go into more on how brain spotting can help you, a couple resources on where you could find a brain spotting therapist for yourself, and just a couple educational pieces about brain spotting. So I really appreciate you all watching today. We're nearing the end here of this series, and I've really appreciated everybody who has given me feedback, who's made some comments, who have shared how this has been helpful and what could be even better. So feel free to comment below or send me an email and let me know what you think. Have an awesome rest of your day.